Everyone and their mother is talking about seed oils, but what's the big deal? Are they really contributing to your brain fog, energy crashes, and poor recovery? Or are they actually harmless and might even be beneficial for your health? We're going to dive into all of that today. We're going to discuss why everyone is talking about them, the anti-seed oil argument versus the pro-seed oil argument, and practical takeaways for business owners. But before we get started, I want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Trevor, and I help scaling entrepreneurs turn health into their unfair advantage without becoming a full-time biohacker so they can perform better, feel better, and ultimately scale their business faster. All right, let's get right into it. What are seed oils? Seed oils are oils derived from seeds like canola, soybeans, sunflower, and corn. These seeds go through an intensive manufacturing process to be converted to oil. The oils from the seeds are extracted using solvents like hexane, then they're bleached, degummed, and deodorized at extremely high temperatures. These oils are used as cooking oils in most restaurants and are found in many processed foods. They're high in omega-6 fatty acids, a type of polyunsaturated fat, also known as a PUFA. So why is everybody talking about seed oils? Well, the reason is because PUFAs are more susceptible to oxidation than saturated or monounsaturated fats. Oxidation is when the fat molecule becomes unstable and can damage cells. Basically, the fat molecules become rogue and start attacking other molecules, which can contribute to inflammation and chronic disease like cardiovascular disease, low energy, insulin resistance, and a host of other problems. And this can happen when the oils are heated to high temperatures, like in cooking, or through stress on the body. When you consume the oils, they are further oxidized when you have any sort of stressors. This can be aging, smoking, drinking alcohol, work stress. Anything that stresses out the body is oxidizing these seed oils further, which is causing more inflammation to the body. And because seed oils are so prevalent in our modern diet, people are worried they're contributing to our current health crisis. And what's interesting is a lot of the seed oil argument is tied to the saturated fat argument. Are saturated fats really bad for us? And what you'll see is a lot of these studies compare seed oils directly to saturated fats. They compare animal fats like lard and butter, which were widely used at the time that these studies started, to these new seed oils like rice bran and canola oil to see which one produces better health outcomes. And both of these sides have really convincing arguments, but there still isn't a clear conclusion. And there's two ways that people think about seed oils. They think about them from a high level view. Does it logically make sense that consuming seed oils would be good for us? And then the other point of view is more of a scientific approach. What does the evidence say? And what do the underlying mechanisms and biology say about consuming seed oils? So for the arguments, the pro seed oil side believes that seed oils have no effects or may even benefit our health. They point to evidence linking seed oil consumption to lower rates of disease and death compared to the saturated fat group. And a lot of these studies also show that people with high levels of linoleic acid, basically eating a lot of seed oils, show lower rates of disease and death compared to the saturated fat group. The studies also show that consuming seed oils lowers markers of inflammation like CRP and ILS-6. And a lot of the key studies that the pro seed oil side cites are randomized controlled trials. And these types of studies are generally stronger than something like an observational study where researchers ask participants to tell them what they ate for the next 10 years. Did they eat a lot of saturated fats or did they eat a diet high in linoleic acid? Versus randomized control trials, they are actually giving the participants the prescribed diet. They are giving them the diet high in linoleic acid or seed oils, and they are giving the participants the diet that are high in saturated fats so they can control the inputs, which makes them generally stronger pieces of evidence. And they also argue that omega-6 LDL particles individually are more harmful, but as a group, they're less likely to cause damage than saturated fat LDL particles. So it's universally agreed upon that these omega-6 LDL particles are individually more dangerous. But when there are groups circulating in their body, they're actually less likely to cause harm and increase the risk of cardiovascular disease than something like saturated fat LDL particles. And the reason for this is because there's going to be less omega-6 LDL particles circulating in the bloodstream, and they're also less likely to clump up and therefore penetrate the artery wall and cause damage. The pro side also believes that the manufacturing process is safe. Vacuum heating limits oxidation because when you heat something in a vacuum, you remove the oxygen, and oxygen is a key part of the oxidation process. They also believe hexane residue is negligible in the seed oils and that you would need to drink 11,000 cups of seed oils in one sitting in order to get even mild symptoms of hexane poisoning. And they also believe that refining may actually reduce oxidation, not increase oxidation in the seed oils. They also push back on key anti-seed oil studies, pointing to issues like conflict of interest. For example, one of those studies compared margarine, which was supposed to just be seed oils, to saturated fats, but it turns out the margarine didn't just contain seed oils, it also contained trans fat, which is known to be worse than saturated fats and seed oils. So it wasn't a direct one-to-one comparison and not entirely accurate. They also push back on some of the mechanisms the anti-seed oil side references because those mechanisms are only found to be true in animal models. They haven't been tested in human models. And they also push back on the fact that some of these studies had high dropout rates, like the Minnesota coronary trial. It showed that over 80% of the participants dropped out before the study ends, and both sides generally agree that they can't draw conclusions because of that. And overall, the pro-seed oil argument puts together a very compelling case. On to the anti-seed oil side. They believe seed oils are a key contributor to our modern health crisis, and they point to evidence linking seed oil consumption with higher rates of disease and death compared to saturated fats. They've also found studies that show high linoleic acid, so somebody who consumes a lot of seed oils and omega-6s, is linked to higher rates of disease and death, not lower, like the pro side is arguing. So the pro seed oil side argues low linoleic acid leads to higher rates of disease, so seed oils must be protective against disease. The anti-seed oil side is saying this is reverse causation. The reason that these people have low levels of linoleic acid is because they have the disease. The inflammation consumes more of this linoleic acid, so they have lower levels of it. So what they're trying to say is this is a symptom of the disease, the fact they have low levels of linoleic acid. It is not the cause of the disease like the pro side is saying. Another big point from this side is that when you look at seed oils from a high level view, do you really think they're healthy? Do you think this highly processed oil that was never consumed throughout human history is good for us? And a lot of them would answer no. And historically, what has been shown is that when we weren't eating seed oils, when we're eating saturated fats and monounsaturated fats like olive oil and avocado oil, we were generally healthier. And there has been a link between the rise of chronic diseases and the consumption of seed oils, which started 60 years ago. Now, people can argue that that is from lack of movement nowadays, too much stress, lack of sleep, more calories, and those are all fair points. But what the anti-seed oil side is arguing is that seed oils are still a meaningful contributor to the rise of chronic disease in our modern era. Another argument from this side is that PUFAs are an oxidative liability. PUFAs are what accumulate when you eat a lot of seed oils and omega-6s. And what they're saying is that PUFAs in themselves are not bad, but they're at risk to oxidize. They're at risk to inflame the body when they're exposed to stress. So the more PUFAs you consume and the more stress your body is exposed to, the more inflammation compounds onto your body. So you get stress from work, from your personal life, from drinking alcohol, from poor sleep. This is all contributing to your overall stress load. But when you have a built-up load of these PUFAs, when these PUFAs are found in your tissue, that work stress, that alcohol stress, that poor sleep stress triggers these PUFAs to oxidize, and this is going to further inflame your body. So it just makes the inflammation and stress that your body is already dealing with much worse. This side also critiques the other side's studies, and what they claim is the pro-seed oil studies were too short to see the long-term effects seed oils have on our bodies. And what the science says is it takes about 4 years for your fat tissue to fully swap out one compound from another. So it takes 4 years for your fat tissue to swap out seed oils for saturated fats or saturated fats for seed oils. And since most of those pro seed oil studies were less than 4 years, you weren't actually able to see the true effects of either compounds. Most of the seed oil studies used inflammation markers, not actual tissue damage, to show that seed oils are good for this. And the problem with this is that CRP reacts to any acute inflammation. So if you get a common cold, then CRP will go up. What it doesn't react to is low chronic grade inflammation like seed oils are suspected to cause. So the problem with it is they're not looking at the actual tissue damage that the seed oils might be causing. They're looking at an overall marker of inflammation for the entire body, making it not as accurate. And lastly, most of the participants who were in the pro seed oil studies were already eating a high seed oil diet. So if they continue to eat their high seed oil diet, they're not going to see many changes in their tissue or their health because they were already doing it. Now, this makes it hard to choose a side because both of these sides have really great points. And I could go into more rebuttals that the anti-seed oil side has, like the manufacturing process is not that great and that the margarine didn't contain trans fats back then. And the pro seed oil side also has other rebuttals for this side, and I could just go on and on. But I'm not going to do that. We're going to get into the practical takeaways for business owners. Okay, so what should you as a business owner do? What you want to do is firstly increase omega-3 consumption. Omega-3 is another polyunsaturated fat, but this one is proven to help fight inflammation and improve cognitive function. A really good way to make sure you're getting enough omega-3s is to eat a fatty fish once or twice a week. That's it. If you don't like fish, you can take a high quality fish oil, and this can also increase your omega-3 content. And this is regardless if you think seed oils are bad. This is just going to help you fight everyday inflammation and also improve your cognitive function. So make sure you're getting enough omega-3s in. Next, you want to avoid fried foods at restaurants. Most of these restaurants use seed oils to fry their foods. And when seed oils are exposed to really high heats, like in the fryer, they're much more likely to oxidize and cause inflammation in your body. So regardless if you think seed oils are bad, avoiding these types of seed oils that are definitely already oxidized is going to be a good thing. And this is especially going to be the case if you go to a fast food restaurant where the frying oil is only changed out every day or every 12 hours. That oil is just repeatedly getting heated up and repeatedly getting oxidized. And again, that's going to increase the chance that when you eat it, when you consume that oxidized seed oil, it is going to inflame your body further. And if you're worried about seed oils, then reduce your consumption. You're going to want to avoid the following oils: canola, grapeseed, cottonseed, corn, rice bran, safflower, soybean, and sunflower oil. And instead, you want to cook with these oils and fats. Butter, as long as it's low to medium heat, beef tallow, ghee, olive oil, avocado oil. Those are great alternatives to seed oils. And what you also want to do is avoid eating seed oils at restaurants or just cook at home more often. And what you can do is you can go on these sites and apps. One of them is called Seed Oil Scout, no affiliation, but it's a great way to check if that restaurant uses seed oils. You can also just look up the restaurant ingredients or ask the waiter, hey, do you use seed oils? I'm allergic. And they'll tell you like, oh yeah, we do. And the best part is that a lot of the restaurants and foods you consume, the processed foods that you consume that contain seed oils, are unhealthy regardless if seed oils are unhealthy. They're highly processed foods. They contain other bullshit that you don't want to be putting into your body. So a lot of the time it is a win-win. And when you're eating out at restaurants, the common things that do have seed oils are dressings, sauces, fried foods like we talked about. So you want to avoid those, especially at restaurants. Lastly, probably the most important point of this video is that you want to focus on levers that are proven to improve your health, like exercise, eating whole foods, quality sleep, stress management. These are all going to 100% improve your health. Seed oils, they may be harmful, but there's no point in obsessing over them. If you think seed oils are bad, reduce your consumption. If you don't care, then focus on the other health levers. And regardless, if you do think seed oils are bad, you should focus on the other health levers. So let's stop obsessing over them and let's move the fuck on. That being said, I myself avoid seed oils. And the reason I do this is because when looking at seed oils from a high level view, I don't think they're healthy. And another reason is a lot of the arguments on the pro seed oil side solely rely on evidence. They don't rely on the underlying mechanisms of why seed oils would be good for us. And that's what I really like about the anti-seed oil sides is they use the underlying mechanisms. And yes, they might be referencing them from animal studies, but I find the argument a lot more convincing than the pro seed oil side. So what I do is, for the most part, I eat at home and I cook with ghee and olive oil. I don't use seed oils and I avoid processed foods. I eat mainly whole foods. And on the weekends, what I do is I'll have 1 to 2 meals out, and those meals might or might not contain seed oils, but I don't really care. My goal here is to reduce the consumption, not completely cut it out. There might be days where I want to go out and eat at a nice restaurant, and that nice restaurant might contain seed oils, and okay, who cares? And there might be some days where I'm eating at not so nice of a restaurant, but it's still some good food, and it might contain seed oils. Again, I don't really care. As long as in the grand scheme of things, I am reducing my seed oil intake, I think I am good. And that is my view. One interesting point, this is more of a personal anecdote, is that when I stopped eating seed oils for a while, and then I went back to eating seed oils just to experiment, I saw that I would feel shitty after eating seed oils. I actually felt the seed oils making me feel shitty after I consumed a meal with them. So that's an interesting point, and I think some other people in my life have also agreed with me on that. So maybe try cutting them out for a while and then reintroducing them and see how you feel. You might get the same reaction as I did. Now, regardless if you're consuming seed oils or not, if your sleep is shit, you're not managing stress, you're not exercising, you're eating poor quality food, then you are not performing at your max potential. And if you'd like help improving those different health levers, then feel free to check the first link in the description to learn more about working with me in a 1-to-1 format. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them below and I will answer them. Until the next one, take care.